afternoon, everyone. Welcome again. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rebecca Wojciak, and I have the pleasure of being the Development and Outreach Manager for the Vancouver Island Symphony. It's wonderful to see you all. Thank goodness you were here safely. First of all, I want to acknowledge our Keynote Speaker Series sponsor, Pinnacle Pharmacy. We're very grateful to integrate their support this year, and one could say they are taking an active position on supporting health and well-being, social prescribing. Today I have the pleasure of introducing two wonderful colleagues, two people who are perhaps the most familiar faces to our Vancouver Island Symphony audiences. If you asked who's been here longer, it's a competition meant by a matter of days. This year we celebrate our 30th season, and I'm sure you're aware of that. Concertmaster Calvin Dyck celebrates 25 years of being with the symphony, and Margot has led the Vancouver Island Symphony for the better part of 26 years. As Concertmaster, Calvin is the liaison between the orchestra and the conductor. He brings thoroughness, thoughtfulness, delight, incredible talent, and unending enthusiasm to every event, concert, rehearsal. You're all nodding because you can feel it from the stage.
Calvin, did you write that?
No. And for a quarter century, he has set the tone for this orchestra at the highest caliber, while never forgetting that a smile goes a long way. As Executive Director, Margot is known for her straightforward business acumen and her dedication to building a community of culture locally and internationally. And while she makes very data-driven decisions, builds strong teams, she is very much a people person and leads with her heart. I can't wait to hear what memories we're going to be sharing today. So please welcome Concertmaster Calvin Dyck and Executive Director Margot Holmes.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Can you all see me? I think I'll just sit this way. I don't want to. Thanks so much to Margot and Rebecca for inviting me to speak to you today on 25 years as concertmaster for the Vancouver Island Symphony. It's an honor to talk about this and perhaps pull back the curtain a little bit on the role that I have had as concertmaster for the Vancouver Island Symphony. Many of you know that it was probably 1999 or 2000 when I said to my wife, Heather, I want to perform more and not be tied to my teaching job so much at the university. So with her encouragement, I resigned my position at Trinity Western, and she assured me something would open up. A few months later, Pippa Williams, who at that time was personnel manager and principal oboist with the symphony, invited me to audition for the role of concertmaster and in conjunction play the concert on the Green. I don't know if any of you ever attended those concerts on the Green on Gabriola Island. I see a few hands. So what I remember is apparently this was a secret from only a few key people knew. Maybe Margot knew, but we were performing the William Tell Overture, and all of a sudden, a white horse galloped up to the front of the stage, and the rider got the horse to rear up on two legs, and then the horse galloped off, and I thought, now that's a symphony I would like to be a part of. Actually, my youth orchestra is working on the William Tell Overture.
Are you riding the horse?
No, there's no horse involved, unfortunately. But we've got one little kid. He stands up in the middle of the show and says, "Hi, ho, Silver!" And then we get but anyway, it's all fun. Hey, the next day, I was invited to the home of Marlon to play for him, an audition, just one-on-one. And after I played for him, he and Pippa went out on the deck, and they talked, and they talked, and they talked. And then they came in, and Marlon said, in his way, Calvin, we would like to offer you a 2-year contract. And I thought, oh, no, I said, I'm only going to be here 1 year. So as a result, I got a 1-year contract with the symphony. Now, if I were to ask you, what are some of the key responsibilities of a concertmaster, what would you say? Anyone?
Tune the orchestra.
Tune the orchestra. Exactly. Yes?
Preparing scripts.
Preparing scripts.
Scores.
Scores like bowings. Yes. Any others that jump to mind? Negotiator. Very astute. Yeah. I thought before I would give my thoughts, I would look up on Wikipedia to see what the internet would say. According to Wikipedia, and I quote, "In an orchestra, the concertmaster is customarily the leader of the first violin section. Any violin solo in an orchestral work is played by the concertmaster. It is usually required that the concertmaster be the most skilled musician in the section, experienced at learning music quickly, counting rests accurately, and leading the rest of the string section by their playing and bow gestures. The concertmaster sits to the conductor's left, closest to the audience, in what is called the first chair, or sometimes first desk. The concertmaster makes decisions, as you said, regarding bowing and other technical details of violin playing for the violins and sometimes all the other string players. The concertmaster leads the orchestra in tuning before concerts and rehearsals and other technical aspects of orchestra management," end quote. So I wrote a few highlights that aren't covered there. One is auditions. The concertmaster is usually expected to be part of every audition for, so you understand, our orchestra is made up of core musicians, and then there's usually some what we call extras to fill out the section. In fact, starting in March, we're starting the process of auditions for a new principal viola. So Cosette emailed me and asked me to help put a list together of the excerpts that the candidates are supposed to prepare. And then we negotiated back and forth, how many solos, do we have, is there something romantic, something classical, something Baroque, something 20th century, and then when that list is finalized, then that's sent to the librarian, and that is communicated with Mark, the personnel manager. So then when candidates apply, Mark sends that list to the candidates. We, on the committee, don't know who's applying. That process is anonymous, and as is traditional for most symphony positions, the candidates will play behind a screen, identified only by number, candidate number 1, number 2, and so on. We can explore that if you have more questions about that. So it's a hands-off approach, but I'm intimately involved in helping design the process.
What are excerpts?
An excerpt might be 3 lines or 1 page from a larger work. So for example, one of the famous excerpts that's on every audition list for violin is the first page from Don Juan by Richard Strauss. Right? It's just, if you can't play that, it's thank you very much. You may go. And then, so typically an audition list would maybe be 10 or 12 excerpts
Of the
hardest repertoire for that instrument, plus then usually the next exposition from a solo concerto for that instrument. So in this case, we give the candidate a fair bit of latitude. They have to prepare a concerto, and often in string players, a piece of unaccompanied Bach is a standard requirement. As you mentioned before, bowing. perhaps one of the most important tasks, at least in my mind, for a concertmaster is to provide bowings for the first violins. These bowings then provide a template for the other principal strings to bow their part. You must know that it's not simply in order for all the bows to move in the same direction, which is, of course, what you see. But there are historical playing styles to consider and specific idiomatic mechanics of the instrument. So, for example, generally speaking, we want down beats to be played with down bows. The bow is heaviest at the frog. You can see it's thicker, and it's lighter here. So if I play a down bow, you can see that the sound dissipates, right? But if I play up bow, so it's appropriate to, if I'm playing and, you know, so you want the strong beats or the down beats to be on a down bow. Except, suppose I'm playing a passage of rapid 16th notes which are crossing between strings. And you would think, okay, except that feels really awkward. So it's easier to do start up bow because it idiomatically feels so much more comfortable, right? And a non-string player wouldn't necessarily know that. So while down beats should always be played with a down bow, in the case of string crossings, that rule is superseded by this. So here's a down beat, but I'm going to play up because it just works better. Does that make sense? Often in a rehearsal, the conductor will ask for a specific effect. And it's the concertmaster's job to translate that into a possible bowing change for the strings. So for example, suppose the ending of a piece is a bunch of chords, and they're marked forte, and I may have already previously bowed it, and Cosette says, I want it stronger. I want more sound. I said, okay, let's try all down bows. Right? You hear that that's louder than, right? So, depending on the effect or the musical effect that a music director is looking for, that affects how we are going to bow it. And so that, in rehearsal, I make a snap decision, say, we're all doing down bows, and then everybody grabs their pencil, and the entire string section quickly marks a down bow. And so those kinds of things can happen. But the 99% of those decisions have already been made. Right now, this weekend, I've actually brought some music with me. Actually, even last night, I was bowing the Mozart Overture for the March show. And it's written, this is how it's written, but I'm going to go because it's softer, right? To put 3 bars all down bow is softer than changing both. And Cosette wrote back, she said, interesting idea. I hope they can do it. But we just have to save your bow. Oh yeah, I better should put this down here. Anyway. In most orchestras, the concertmaster is the musician who is always there. In fact, actually, when I played for Marlon, he said, I just have one condition, that you not miss a show. Guest conductors may appear from time to time. In fact, our show this weekend, we have a guest conductor for Vancouver Island Symphony. And we were discussing earlier, in most major orchestras, the principal conductor conducts less than half the shows. But the concertmaster is the consistent, musician who's there. In the case where, especially with a guest conductor who we've never played before, they may very well have a different technique, and all the musicians are just keeping an eye on the bow of the concertmaster, and then when I play, then they'll play, right? So it ensures that we play together. In a way, the conductor may be considered a generalist, and the concertmaster is very much on the specific. This is what we're doing together. You also have probably noticed that when the conductor comes on stage, he or she shakes hands with the concertmaster, and the concertmaster in this case is a representative of all the musicians saying, yes, welcome here, we respect, we'll follow you, just it's protocol. Regarding counting, I remember playing concertmaster in the University of Southern California Orchestra under the direction of Mr. Daniel Lewis. We were rehearsing a piece by Steve Reich, in which the violins had the same notes over and over for 157 bars. And then one note changed. So you can imagine, and one bar 58. So it's very minimalist music. Anyway, halfway through the page, I lost count. And I'm playing, and I leaned over to my stand partner. I said, "Do you know what bar we're on?" And she shook her head. And I looked hopefully at Daniel Lewis, and he was busy cueing somebody in the brass or something. Never got a cue. And of course, we didn't come in. We didn't change. So he stops and he looks at me. And he says, "Are you lost?" And I said, "Mr. Lewis, is it possible for you to give us a cue at bar 158 when the pattern changes?" He looked furious and replied, "It is not my job to count for you. If you can't count, you can move back into the section and I'll have somebody else play concertmaster." You could have heard a pin drop as the rest of the orchestra looked at me to see what I would say. I held my tongue, but in my head, I decided right then and there, for the rest of my life, I would count every bar, every beat, and every subdivision. In fact, I tell my kids, my students, I have one rule for you: subdivide and conquer. Can you say that for me? Subdivide and conquer. So my goal is, if the conductor gets lost, I'll still know exactly where, and I'll cue, and we'll come in. And actually that has happened on occasion.
How do you keep track of 157 bars?
Yeah.
Focus.
Inside my shoe, my toe is tapping.
Yes.
I also am clicking my teeth. And if it's rests, I feel one. I feel one here, and then I feel two with my second finger, 3 and 4, and then when I get to 10, this finger moves, and then I feel 1. So I'm actually physically keeping track.
Good.
And for particularly problematic sections, like if you have a piece where there is a lot of rests, like 30 bars rest or something, I'll often actually look at the score and write in the notes that the flute has or the oboe has, the bar before we play, or if it's with singers, what is the word that they sing on the downbeat before I have to come in. So I'm listening for something, right? So.
Where did they lose count?
Well, you have to make a judgment call sometimes. Sometimes somebody else will come in incorrectly. That's a very good question. If the person who comes in correctly has the lead line, we go with them. Even the conductor will go with them. But if it's, let's suppose it's an accompanying note in the cellos and they're a bar early, and no, I'm good, no. Here we are, right? And boom. And then everybody, oh yeah, because I have the melody, let's say. So you sometimes you're having to make judgment calls right with split-second decision. There's this rule you've probably heard, the show must go on. Maybe only in 30, 40 years of making music, I think I've only stopped once in the middle of a show. We were doing excerpts from a musical. What's that musical? Oh, and it's an English musical. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Where the kids are so hungry. Oliver. We're doing excerpts from Oliver. Thank you for helping me. And we had a child soloist, 12-year-old soloist, who was singing a solo. And so she walks on stage, and I start the orchestra, 4-bar intro, and she goes to sing. Beautiful voice. And the mic was not working. And she had a very, very small voice, right? So your whole orchestra playing, nobody could hear. And I said, stop. And I walked off stage, and I grabbed another mic, made sure the light was on, went back and handed her, said, from the top. And I found, it was the matinee, I did not know, but her grandparents and her parents that's the show they had bought tickets for. So, and they came and thanked me, thank you for getting another. So that was the right decision, but generally you just keep going, right? And yeah, good question. I think another category of what a concertmaster does is an advisor. The concertmaster is a second pair of eyes and ears for a conductor, and the protocol is generally that the rest of the musicians are not supposed to speak up. They're not supposed to give their opinion. You can imagine if Cosette stops and 40 people say, oh, I think we should do, right? It just would be cacophony. On the other hand, the concertmaster is granted the special privilege and indeed expectation to make suggestions both to the other musicians and to the conductor. Examples might include asking the string players to play in the same part of the bow, or saying to the flute player, we have the same passage, can we match articulation? Or saying to the maestro, could we try this in 2 instead of in 4? Or maestro, those chords at letter B, we're just not in tune. Do you mind? Could we tune those chords? If the ensemble is making too much noise, like people are talking or something, it's the prerogative of the concertmaster to say, guys, let's listen up. Listen to what the conductor has to say. It's better if it comes from me, the concertmaster, rather than from the director. The concertmaster is usually consulted on seating arrangement within the violin sections. In fact, this morning, Mark Beattie just sent me the list of all the violins and said, can you just give final approval on the seating? And you wouldn't think it was such a big deal, but based on people's personalities, it might not be good to seat them together. So maybe I don't need to go any further. But you understand that some people just get along better. And so then for the health of the section, it's better, these two people should not sit together. So, occasionally, not always, it's not a requirement, I'll get to you in a second, but at times the concertmaster is sometimes asked for an opinion on the repertoire that we play, a soloist that we hold, or how many rehearsals do you think we should plan for Vivaldi Four Seasons? I'm like, you know what? We've all played it. I think we can get away with 1 or 2 rehearsals. We really don't need 4 rehearsals on Vivaldi Four Seasons. What else is on the program? Oh, Jeffrey Ryan's Seasons of the Sea. Oh, we've never played that. I definitely think we need 2 rehearsals, right? Vivaldi Four Seasons, we can probably do it in 1. But these have economic implications for the symphony. So sometimes Margot's actually phoned me and said, Calvin, this is what we're planning. Do you think this is a good idea? What was your question?
I was thinking, other than people's personality, are there other reasons when you plan the seating of the auction?
You know, well, it's related. Generally try not to put 2 concertmasters sitting beside each other, right? So there are some really good musicians who are sometimes sub with us, and I would say to Mark, oh, so-and-so would be better either as principal second or second desk, but don't put her beside me because she's going to do this. She's going to lead. She can't help it. Her whole life she's been a leader. So bury her in the section or give her another leadership role. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was wondering if it depends on the various parts that do.
Yes. So we did a piece recently. I can't remember when it was, but the violin part was divided in 4. So then you want strong people on each of those parts, right? So typically, there's a hierarchy, and your most experienced, your strongest players are at the front of the section, and the less experienced and sometimes the younger players are typically at the back. But in this case, I said, you know what? I think we need to put so-and-so actually on the last desk because we want somebody strong. We don't want nobody able to hear the 4th part. That should be just as strong as the other parts. Atmosphere. I'm keenly aware that my attitude as concertmaster can affect the health of the orchestra. It is my responsibility to show up prepared and do my best to make the composer's intentions come to life. It's always my goal to leave my issues, my problems at the door and not take them into the rehearsal. In addition, I take the attitude that everyone is trying to do their best and doesn't mean to mess up or make a mistake. So I intentionally use inclusive language when addressing an issue. Let's make sure we subdivide at bar 10. Let's make sure we watch the conductor at the retard. And sometimes they'll say, oh yeah, no, that was me. I said, no, it's okay. You don't. Jeremy makes a suggestion, and I'm like, that's really good. I'll stand up and say, you know what? In bar 30, let's bow 2 and 2. Thanks to Jeremy for that good suggestion. When I notice that a particular musician plays exceptionally well, I make a point of going to them and telling them I appreciated their playing. And after the show, I try to remember to shake hands with my stand partner. We're doing this together. Now, just reflections on the growth of the symphony. Some of you have been patrons for a long, long time. When I first started, the Vancouver Island Symphony was a combination of community players and professionals, and we would actually rehearse on 2 weekends. We'd come over for a Saturday, two rehearsals, go home, and then come back on the following weekend and put the show together. Sometimes we were billeted. Sometimes we stayed at the Moby Dick, which was a little sketchy. But in those days, you could walk onto the ferry for about $7.50 for a passenger ferry. I'll never forget the time we were rehearsing on a Saturday at an elementary school. It was a wintry day, and the district had turned off the heating for the weekend. We were wearing winter jackets, blowing on our fingers. Of course, we couldn't wear gloves because you've got to be able to finger the. And at the lunch break, several of the musicians went home, came back with space heaters, which we then plugged in all around the auditorium. 10 minutes later, we blew the breaker, and all the lights went out. And then, of course, well, who do we know to call so we can turn the lights. Where is the breaker in this school, right? In my time, I've worked for 3 different artistic directors. Marlon Wolfe. Marlon was a violinist. Played for a long time in the Edmonton Symphony. And I learned a lot from him. One of his ideas was something that he called English Baroque. So if we take a famous piece like Bach's Brandenburg Concerto, I learned it in the middle of the bow. And he said, no, I want English Baroque. So I'm like, what? He said, at the upper half. So listen to the length of the eighth notes. These are shorter, right? And these are. So he forever changed how I thought about how to play Baroque music, just with that simple idea. Years ago, we used to do the Nutcracker at the port with a local ballet company. And do you remember the name of the ballet company?
Yes, Kirkwood.
Was it
Kirkwood.
Kirkwood Ballet Company. And and the port has a small pit underneath the stage. So we're all in the pit, and it was the matinee show, I think. I don't know why all the good stories come from the matinee show. You should always buy the matinee tickets. Anyway, everything was going fine. And earlier that morning, the crew had refilled the steel drum above the stage that held all the confetti to create the illusion of snow. And it was the time for the dance of the snowflakes. And the music started and the ballerinas came out and they're dancing, and then the drums started to turn. But unfortunately that morning, they had forgotten to turn the latch on the drum that held the confetti. And initially just a little bit of snow came and as the drum turned, and then as it got to 180, the door opened and there was literally a dump of snow. It went thump on the stage. It was about 2 feet high, and the musicians like this. But the show must go on. Marlon kept conducting, we kept playing, and the ballerinas just leapt gracefully over the snowbank, back and forth. I'll never forget that performance of the Nutcracker as long as I live. Pierre Simard. Pierre was an oboist originally. His wife was a soprano and had sung several seasons with Cirque du Soleil. And we had the privilege of doing a few shows with Nadia. Pierre was also a composer and arranger who arranged several pieces for us. I think he actually composed a piece called The Overture for the Bastion one time. And I would say, if there was one significant thing, is that Pierre really encouraged me in my role as concertmaster. He helped me develop the confidence. And he said, Calvin, if you have a good idea, speak up. Even just interrupt me if it's going to make the music better, because he said, I can't hear everything, right? I'm only one set of ears. So I always appreciated him for giving me that permission to speak up. Our most recent music director, Cosette Valdez, originally she's a keyboardist. As you've already experienced, she has huge energy and passion. I really appreciate her love for people, her passion and energy for music, and some truly memorable events, such as that Cuban show she did last season, the Gershwin concert, which we had this fall, the Shostakovich Symphony event, that huge project which we did. And that's just a few things. In 25 years, we've had many, many different projects, and I would say maybe it's partly due to Margot's vision that Vancouver Island Symphony has had more than just support concerts. We've had, for years, Vancouver Island Symphony would do an outdoor Symphony by the Sea event. Some of you remember those, at Maffeo Sutton Park. Hugely popular event. Always, the biggest challenge was funding because it was a free event. I don't know how many of you attended one of those concerts, probably several of you. There was one time where Marlon planned to do the 1812 Overture by Tchaikovsky, and he arranged for a real cannon. It didn't have any shot in it, but it was set up right in front of that gazebo, pointing towards the ocean. And when that thing went off, wow, that was so much fun. I've always wanted to repeat that, but it's really hard to find a cannon. Recordings. We've done a number of recordings. I can't remember how many. Three.
No,
And
four. Four.
So I remember there was the one we did with Tatsumi, the Vivaldi Four
Vivaldi,
Seasons.
yeah.
And then
Mozart. There's a Mozart one.
There's a Mozart one. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, and there was a Pops in the Harbor.
Pops?
We did a
Well, then
Pops
there was the concerto CD.
And then the
And then
that's
the one
four.
we're working on now.
Oh yeah, another one. But
There's
it's not
another
out
one.
yet.
So that's number 5. So stay tuned. New music. Education. One of the highlights of our symphony program is a very successful enterprise in presenting music to young children. And through Margot's vision, she got the district to agree that every grade 4 student in Nanaimo would hear the symphony. And in fact, also it's expanded now to Courtenay, right?
Yeah, it's been in Courtenay for about at least 8 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I think this last month it was close to 3,500 children came to hear the symphony. Yes?
My grandson was there,
Oh.
and he was in the balcony.
Oh.
Could see everything.
That's great. That's great. But it's not just that. We've also had a program of sending individual musicians to schools to demonstrate their instrument and talk about the symphony and answer questions from the kids. And then in addition, we usually present at least one family show. So on April 5th, Vancouver Island Symphony this year is going to present a program called M is for Music, which is a play by Shauna Johansson. Shauna is an actress who will host this kid-friendly concert, and Cosette has asked me to conduct, which I'm thrilled to do. One of the top things that came out of COVID was this idea of backyard pop-up concerts. How many of you have been to one of those? Wow.
Good.
They've become hugely popular. Initially, the rule was, we couldn't have more than 50 people gather. And it had to be outdoors, because indoors couldn't be more than 10. So we said, wow, what if we had 3 or 4 musicians and 45 guests? That would be less than 50. And so that was legal. And this grew to become multiple groups, and we'd come over and we'd do 8 shows, different backyards. And the group that I was part of was with Paolo Bortoluzzi and Mark Beattie, so we called it the Marco Paolo Trio. So, and it's been so much fun to pull out the accordion and do songs and rearrange music for bass and flute and accordion. Some special projects. I don't know how many of you know, but one time the Vancouver Island Symphony actually went to Vancouver and played at a Vancouver Canadians baseball event during the 7th inning stretch. We've done chamber music. There's been connections with Berwick, collaboration with choirs, with dance, as I mentioned. Margot and I dreamt up a few years ago an idea, a multi-arts showcase called Nanaimo Bar None, which featured dance and poetry and bands and orchestra, and it was really fun to put that together. Then over the years, I've had so many opportunities to play solos. Solo concertos, such as most recently the Mozart Sinfonia Concertante with Sevilla. Previously, I did it many years ago with the principal violist from Vancouver Island Symphony, Vancouver Symphony. I've done Hawk Canary, Chardas, Souvenir d'Amérique, Scheherazade, Mozart concertos, Lalo, Vivaldi Winter, et cetera, et cetera. And that's been a real joy. There have been unexpected spin-offs because of this role. And one of the most recent has been an association with the Oceanside Classical Concert Series in Parksville. Pam is here, our president. And my role there is mostly to help curate a lineup of guest artists for that series, which is a sold-out series. We're looking forward this spring to hosting Kallur with Ari Barnes and Heidi Crutzen. I'm really looking forward to Kevin Chen, who's one of Canada's top pianists. He's 19, got his ARCT at the age of 9, and has won 5 international competitions, and he's only 19. But I will tell you, I don't know, how many of you know Tom Ellen from CBC? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is coming to Parksville and doing a really interesting show called Bach's Long Walk in the Snow. Mm-hmm. And that'll be on Friday, March 7th, and there are still tickets available for that, correct? Yes. I've had opportunities to work actually at the Nanaimo Conservatory of Music and taught there for a number of years. And one of the students went on to become a really good violinist. I've been part of the Nanaimo Music Festival and other organizations. Also, unexpectedly, really neat connections with a number of patrons and sponsors and colleagues, of course. So it was more than just, performing music behind a wall or on stage, but actually making a connection with people. I never expected it, but this opportunity to conduct actually has been a really neat thing too. A unique challenge, which is a different challenge than playing music. So here I am, 25th year as concertmaster for Vancouver Island Symphony, and I'm still on a 1-year contract. By my choice.
I was gonna say.
The experience has added a balance to my life and introduced me to new repertoire. It really has been a great blessing to have not only the opportunity to play in a professional symphony, but to use a variety of gifts, which I think Margot is especially talented at bringing out in people. I've always felt encouraged to share my ideas, assume additional leadership roles, and truly flourish as a person and a musician. And I want to thank you, Margot. You trusted me to do TV interviews and radio interviews, fundraising initiatives, outreach, and then in 2022, 2023, assume a 1-year position as artistic manager for the symphony while we were on a conductor search. And it truly opened my eyes that, the symphony is 80% dealing with people and 20% making music. I can't tell you all the things that we handled that year. You need to know that I have loved being a part of the VIS, and it is difficult to let it go. However, I know it's time to leave, and I believe that as this door closes, other opportunities and other doors will open. I just have to be willing to walk through those doors into the new adventures that life will bring. So now we have more time for questions, and we'll just open it up to all of you. Yes, start over here and then.
Yes, first a quick story. Amateur orchestra, and we went down to a new place and played an outdoor concert. It was windy and we didn't have enough clothespins. Enough of that. We saw Howard Bell bring his orchestra into the Smith Center in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And he sat in the concertmaster's chairs, but he also directed the orchestra. I'm just wondering if that is at all common.
It used to be much more common in the Baroque era, right, where And typically the conductor would be the keyboardist, sit at the harpsichord and conduct from the keyboard. It's occasionally done. Sometimes we've experimented with not having a conductor. So right now our school show is only 12 musicians. And we talked it over, and it really initiated by Mark Beattie, that we have a reduced version of Mussorgsky's Pictures at an Exhibition that was arranged by Jason Nett, a Canadian composer. And we agreed that as long as we would sit in a semicircle and all could see each other, then different ones of us could cue, and we would say, oh, flute has the line, let's watch the flute here, or whatever. And so for the last 3 years, we've done that show without a conductor. Generally speaking, if you have a larger group of people, and some of them are quite distant from each other, you know that light travels faster than sound, right? And the problem is that if the brass player tries to play with the violin sound, by the time he hears the violin, he's already late. So therefore, you need a visual cue. Don't play with, so sometimes the conductor say, no, don't play with what you hear, play with the stick, right? Or follow the bow of the, right? So, there's the ictus, and that's where we play. And then the audience will hear it as together. So the larger the ensemble, the more imperative it is to have a music director. It's a good question.
Calvin, in your absence or your departure now, I've always assumed the second chair would move in to be concertmaster. And a second part of that is, after you answer that, the people behind the screen, can some of your violinists apply for the job?
Oh yeah, anybody's welcome to apply.
Okay.
Yes, let's suppose I got the flu tonight. Then Alana would automatically move up. So she won the position of assistant concertmaster. That's actually her title. And so but even if she's assuming the role of concertmaster, her title is still assistant concertmaster. She has to win that role. So she's welcome to apply. The plan next year, the plan will be to have sometime in the next 6 months an audition. And the plan will be to choose 5 candidates for the position of concertmaster, and each of them will have a show. One show to play next season. It would have to be a main show. Like you wouldn't give them the family show or a matinee.
They could have a matinee.
But like a full show, right? And so and then they can be evaluated by the audition committee. The audition committee would be typically about 5 or 6 people. Of course, the music director, and then usually some other core musicians from the symphony. In this case, presumably there would be at least a couple of principal strings on that committee. And then after all the 5 candidates have played, they will actually probably get feedback from other musicians in the symphony. But the committee then would meet and make a final decision on who the best candidate is.
And ultimately, it's the artistic director's final decision.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
That's a different scenario than another musician
Yeah,
applying.
she gets veto
power.
Veto power.
Yeah.
Because that's the artistic
She
director.
she is.
Are symphonies and philharmonics moving away from the word director?
No.
Why is she not called a director?
She
Oh,
is.
she is.
She is.
She's the principal.
She's
She's
the artistic director.
Artistic director.
So
And principal conductor,
and
yes.
maybe
Okay.
yeah. So when you see the work that a conductor does on stage, that's the work of the conductor.
Yeah.
There's so much behind the scenes that the artistic director does. They pick the season, They
Pick the soloists?
They pick the soloists. They deal with all kinds of things that you would never see actually.
And have the ultimate say on who's going to be the
Yes.
concert.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you actually work fairly closely together on a lot of issues.
So do we presume then that when somebody is auditioning, it's at a performance that Cassette is directing?
It will be marked in the program for you.
Yes, but
like it will
Cosette-
be, Cosette will be conducting, absolutely.
Right.
But you'll also know, you won't see a name, but you'll see Concertmaster audition or something to that effect. So.
Les.
Calvin, not so much a question, but permission from you to pass around a CD which has a photograph on the back, which I think all of your fans here will love to have a look at.
I would-
Pass this around.
Sure. I was younger then, Les. Yeah.
27 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Young.
Still
Yes.
I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but I've always enjoyed very much your body language on scene, like you really move with. And up to now, I always thought this was 100% just from your soul in the music, but how much of that is actually to cue in the other musician? Is that some part of what you're trying to do, and you're moving like that? You're cueing on the other.
Yeah, when I'm subbing in a Vancouver Symphony at the back, I'm mostly still.
Okay.
But right? That helps the musicians behind me come in. If I just play, they don't know, right? It's not helpful.
You're breathing too.
Yes. Well,
No,
yeah, absolutely.
No, like a big,
Yeah, I do. I actually physically breathe. So, sometimes maybe it's too audible, but the clearer I am, the more then the musicians will feel confident to come in. So it's absolutely, it's deliberate. But I don't even think about it anymore. It's sort of.
And I'd
yeah.
just like to comment on that. Yes, it's part of his job, but the smile you see on your face is his personality. Yeah. And to be honest, we couldn't ask for a better personality to lead an orchestra, because sometimes orchestras are very negative, not ours. And I really believe that's because, Calvin, it's really hard to yell at somebody when they're smiling at you, right? And they're positive and they're supportive. So I won't.
Thank you. It's also a culture that we've built.
Yes.
It's been deliberate, and Margot has done. There's been little things along the way to make the musicians feel valued. So, at every break, there's coffee and tea and cookies available. And this is not true at other orchestras. It is not true. That is not provided at the Vancouver Symphony. That is not provided at the Edmonton Symphony. I've played there. I was invited to audition for Concertmaster of the Edmonton Symphony a few years ago.
I remember.
Most of you wouldn't know that.
Didn't want him to go.
And they shortlisted 3 people. And the week that I got there, they said one guy dropped out, so there's 2 of you left. And the deal was, we want you to play a show, try it out, play a show with the symphony, just like we're going to do. So I flew up to Edmonton. I was there for 5 days, and the tension on stage was palpable. And we're just 45 minutes into the first rehearsal, and I turned around to give a suggestion to the section, and the violinist sitting second desk, 4th violinist, right, inside second desk, was gone. What? You just left the rehearsal? I've never seen this happen. So I said to my assistant concertmaster, I said, what happened to the violinist? Oh, he said, the 2 of them aren't getting along. So she went home. What? You just left work? Like you just walked out? That's how much tension there was. And before the week was over, I thought, I don't want this job. I don't care what it pays. I don't want to be in such a miserable situation. So I phoned our personnel manager and I said, listen, I'll finish the week, I'll play the concert, but you can let the people know I'm not interested in this job. And so just to say, I think we have a very special organization here where people actually get along, and they are here because they love to do music. They're not really primarily here to make a whole bunch of money, because it's a pretty minor contract for a section musician to do, 7 concerts, 7 weekends a year, right? It's about 3 weeks of work, right, in total. So, or 4 weeks, about a month, if you add up all the days. If we come here like this weekend, it's 2 days work, right? Friday night, 2 services on Saturday. So it's 3 services. But we do it because we enjoy making music together. And maybe it's also good that the rest of the month we're not sitting beside each other, we're not getting on each other's nerves. So maybe there's something actually about a part-time symphony that's healthier than a full-time symphony. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I think also people have come here, and they come from away, most of them.
Yeah.
So they have to stay together. They have to eat together. They have to, share hotel rooms, and they get along. I think they're truly happy to see each other. Yeah. I know we are happy from a staff perspective when the orchestra comes to town, because this is the work we do, and it's lovely to see those people that you do the work for, right? Yes.
Wow. Yes.
Well, I'd like to say, to be that shows up so much in the pop-up summer concerts, where there's so much fun obviously being held among the musicians and then with the smaller audiences. And it's so palatable.
Well, and they pick the music. The summer shows,
yes.
That was the whole concept, that they're playing the music that they want to play together.
And as somebody sitting back listening, it's something that you would never hear.
Right.
At a symphony concert.
Right.
Which
Yes.
is also
Sure.
encouraging for everybody.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I understand you have a say when somebody's hired with the strings. But what about if somebody applies for percussion or wind instrument?
Yeah, I have been on every audition for 25 years. So from timpani, I helped hire, and I actually have on every audition committee for artistic director too. So I helped choose Pierre and Cosette. Did you have a question, or we're almost there? Yes, a couple more.
Calvin, you wouldn't like Edmonton's weather either.
Yes.
I just want to make a comment. You were talking about the interactions within the orchestra, but the summer pop-ups were huge, certainly for me, with regards to interaction between the audience and the orchestra.
Yes.
We've actually gotten to know you, whereas before you were 60 feet away or 100 feet away, and you're playing to our benefit, obviously, but it's so much more personal.
And it's more
And that's
personal
precious.
within the audience as well.
Exactly, yeah.
There's much
Within
more
the
conversation back and forth.
Well, I think this is very, very important. If the symphony is going to survive as an entity, I think we have to make connections with people. Because technology is at such a level, you can hear perfect recordings online from Berlin Philharmonic or Vienna, a level that we'll never achieve. But we don't know those people. So really, the ace that we have here is to foster connections between people and make it a personal experience. Yes?
I can tell Margot that, we had tickets, have had tickets for the summer concert, and last summer we couldn't attend, so we gave our tickets to friends who had never been to a concert at the Port Theatre in the Symphony. They bought season tickets. So, well done, you.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. Yes?
I have one more question, which is not directly to you, but
I know that Cosette tries to kind of bring modern music closer to us. And I was wondering, what are the criteria? Like, I go by, I like it or I don't. But I think a professional must have other criteria, like how many notes the composer uses or how many instruments. What are the criteria to say that's a good composer?
It's personal.
It's a really, really good question. I think you should ask Cosette yourself.
Okay.
Because that's her bailiwick.
So I haven't really said very much because Mr. Calvin has been chatting away, but I'm going to finish by saying we will miss you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your contribution.
You're welcome.
And thank you for sharing all of this.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very
everybody.
much. Thanks so much. Thanks, Margot.